Let me just start off by saying this huge warning to all of you, which is not to be Jason Maron's reference for a job. It all started at my favorite Indian restaurant, and I have been going there for years, but unfortunately, I would have to stop going, as I was moving to another completely different area. In the last 6 months of my stay in the area I was living at the time, I visited my favorite Indian restaurant many times as I could, as I would miss the food ever so much. I also noticed they had a new worker, and I thought this restaurant was a family-run business, but I didn't question it at the time. In the last couple of months of me going to the Indian restaurant, I really got to know the new waiter for this Indian restaurant. His name was Jason Maron. He was funny, great to talk to, and it's quite nice to be at a nice Indian restaurant with good food and a good, intelligent conversation. It just makes the experience more enjoyable. I really came to like Jason, and I told him that me and my family are moving and that I will eventually stop coming here, and I always used to give Jason good tip money when the bill came. Jason told me that he is only a temporary worker for the restaurant and that he will need another reference for another job. You need 2 references these days to get a job. Jason had the restaurant manager as his first reference, and now he had me. We both shook hands, and I remember saying goodbye to the whole restaurant workers and chefs. I was going to miss them so much. Jason thanked me for being his second reference, and I said that he can rest assured I will say good things about him. I also gave him my email address, and I remember when I moved away into my new home, I received an email from an employee for Jason. The employer through email said, "Is Jason Maron a good person?" And I replied, "Yes," through email, and other good descriptions. Then the employer replied, "No, he isn't. He murdered my family. Why would you lie?" And I didn't know what to say about that. I just left it there. But I started to get more emails from different employers, all saying, "Is Jason Maron a good person?" I replied yes, to all of them. But then they will always reply back saying, "No, he isn't," and that I am a liar. I started to become worried and confused. I then started to receive phone calls from employers about Jason Maron. These employers, just like in the emails, would say to me, "Is Jason Maron a good person?" And I would reply hesitantly, "Yes." And just like in the email, the reply to that would be, "You're lying. He imprisoned me and tortured me." I started to become really regretful and started to become stressed out by this with constant emails and now phone calls. I tried changing my mobile number, but I always get calls from employers about Jason Maron. Then I started to get images to my email, and it showed Jason with people next to him, all hurt, and they were all crying. It was horrid to look at, and Jason was smiling even though the other people in the picture were clearly troubled. I went back to the Indian restaurant and I couldn't find Jason, and I asked the manager about Jason Maron, but he had no idea what I was talking about. I showed him a picture of Jason Maron, but the manager promised me on his mother's grave that he employed no such individual, and he said his business is strictly a family business. I had no idea what to do, and what was going on, and when I received a phone call from an employer for Jason Maron, and this time when I was asked if whether Jason Maron is a good person or not, I replied, "No, he isn't." And the employer replied, "Thank you for being honest. You have set me free." Then straight after, I received a phone call from Jason Maron, and he straight up told me, one has been set free and another must replace him, and he put the phone down. I work for an insurance company now, and it's one of the reasons I had to leave the area. When I came home, I found my family had been abducted and an iPhone had been left on with Skype on. I could see my family all tied up and crying. Jason Maron was in the background, and I wasn't allowed to call the police or even write this, but hopefully he won't find it, or otherwise he will kill my family. I have to be like the employers now, and I have to call people new references for Jason Maron. If they are honest, I could be set free and my family, but if not, well, I'm stuck here. Whoever you do not ever agree to be a reference for Jason Maron.
When I was 6 years old, I fell into my great-grandmother's pond. In that pond, I drowned. I was dead for around 2 minutes before my father found me, dragged me from the cold water, and resuscitated me. Since then, I've seen things. After reading some stories on this thread, I feel like this would be a great place to tell my story. At 6 years old, I fell into a pond and drowned. I remember the cold waters of November as I thrashed about. I remember slipping under the surface as the world began to fade from my view. I remember the overwhelming blood rushing from my body as the oxygen became less and less available. Then I remember the way it suddenly stopped. I remember the darkness, a darkness like nothing I could ever conceive, and the sheer numbness I felt. I tried to move, but I could feel absolutely nothing. There was no sound, no light, just nothingness. I tried to feel my arms and legs, but it's like they weren't there. I tried looking around, but I had no idea if I was even moving. It felt as if I was floating, but not in water, just floating in nothingness. Wherever I was seemed not to be affected by time. It felt like seconds, but at the same time, an eternity. Almost like I just couldn't comprehend what was happening. I felt so alone and so afraid, yet I also felt so indifferent about it. I couldn't think about anything. That's when they appeared, two eyes glowing in the darkness, as if someone simply opened them inches from me. But they weren't human. They were almost human, but in a negative contrast. The whites of the eyes were black. The iris was a white ring encircling a deep, dark pupil. These eyes stared intensely at me. They bored into me, filling me with so many intense emotions. It felt as if my body was flooded with adrenaline. Then suddenly a pair of dark hands lunged from the darkness and grabbed me. The next thing I remember is the sunlight blinding me as my chest heaved and burned. I coughed hard as the water was expelled from me and was replaced with air. I could see my dad kneeling over me, tears in his eyes. He then hugged me tightly for what felt like forever. Since then, I've always seen things out of the corner of my eye, a dark figure always out of the view. When I turn to look, there's nothing there. In the dark, I see a shadow only for it to disappear once I turn on the lights. I always feel it though, watching me. Always. Then, one day, I turned to look and it didn't go away. For the last 4 years, he's stopped hiding. He has revealed himself to me. A tall, thin creature seemingly made of the same darkness I seen in that abyss. He seems to give off a dark smoke, like essence. He does not scare me. He has spoken to me, told me things. I thought I was just imagining him, but he has proved to me he is real. He's told me things I shouldn't know. Things I've never learned or heard. He speaks to me in a language I can't quite comprehend, but somehow I know exactly what he says. He protects me from things. Dark things that wish to harm me. Maybe he is a ghost. Maybe he is a demon. I can't tell you for certain.